Over 80% of data breaches involve stolen or compromised credentials. Not malware, not 0 days, not some exotic nation state technique. A username, a password, an account that shouldn't have had that level of access in the first place. Identity is where most attacks succeed, and it's where most organizations are still getting it wrong. My name is Jeff Robertson. I've spent over 30 years in IT and cybersecurity. I teach cybersecurity at the university level, and I've built and assessed security programs across multiple industries. Today, we're talking about identity management, what it is, where it fails, and what getting it right actually looks like. Identity management is the practice of controlling who can access what and under what conditions. That covers users, devices, applications, and data. It also covers employees, contractors, partners, as well as service accounts. Every time someone or something tries to access a system, there are three questions that need to be answered. Who are you? Should you have access to this? Are the conditions right to grant it right now? Most organizations can answer the first question. Very few consistently answer the second and third. And that gap between authenticating identity and actually governing access is exactly where breaches happen. Let's talk about how identity programs break down in practice. There are three failure modes I see consistently. First, shared credentials. Shared admin accounts, shared service accounts, shared login for a platform nobody wants to own. When something goes wrong, and it will go wrong, you have no idea who did what. You can't investigate, you can't contain, you can't even prove the scope. Shared credentials aren't a convenience, they're a liability. The second is excessive privilege. People accumulate access over time. They change roles, they take on new projects. Nobody really removes the old access. That's called privilege creep, and it turns a low risk account into a high value target. The third is the assumption that authentication equals security. Getting someone through the front door doesn't mean they should have run of the building. Which brings me to the most important concept in this video. Strong login and least privilege are two completely different things. Strong authentication says, I know who you are. Least privilege says, here's exactly what you're allowed to do and nothing more. You can have multi-factor authentication on every account in your organization and still have a catastrophic breach. Because once an attacker gets in through a legitimate account, they move laterally through everything that account can touch. Authentication controls the door, authorization controls the room. You need both, and most programs invest heavily in the door while leaving the rooms wide open. Zero Trust is the framework that addresses exactly this problem. The core process is simple. Never trust, always verify. Don't assume that because somebody's inside your network, they belong there. Don't assume the logged in user should have access to every system. Verify continuously and not just at login. Zero Trust rests on 5 pillars. Identity verification. Authenticate every user, every session, every time. Not once at the start of the day, continuously, with contextual signals like location, behavior, and device health. Device security. The identity of the user matters. So does the health of the device they're using. Compromised device is a compromised session, regardless of who's logged in. Network segmentation. Microsegmentation limits how far an attacker can go if they do get in. Contain the blast radius. Don't let a single compromised account reach everything. Application access. Enforced least privileged at the application layer. Users should see only the applications and data that their role requires. Enforced at the system level, not just the policy. Data protection. Classify your data. Encrypt what matters. Monitor data flows for anomalies. Identity without data governance is incomplete. Zero product isn't a trust you can buy. It's a set of principles you architect your environment around. The 5 pillars give you a structured way to do that. Here's what weak identity looks like in practice and what strong looks like on the other side. Shared admin credentials across teams versus individual identity with MFA enforced on every account. A flat network with no segmentation versus microsegmented zero trust zones. Annual password revision is your authentication policy versus continuous authentication and real-time monitoring. Perimeter-only firewall protection versus defense in depth at every layer. Manual ad hoc patch management versus automated vulnerability scanning and patching. Every item in that weak column represents a real attack surface, not theoretical. These are the exact conditions attackers look for before they make their move. The organizations on the strong side aren't immune, They're dramatically harder to move through. Identity management isn't the most exciting topic in security, but it's the one that matters the most. Most breaches don't start with a sophisticated attack. They start with a credential, valid, undetected, and overprivileged. Fix the identity problem and you take away the most common path in. Strong authentication, least privilege, zero trust principles, continuous verification. That's where security actually begins. If you're building your cybersecurity knowledge, whether you're working towards certification, growing from an IT background, or building a security program, the link in the description takes you to my full course bundle. Subscribe for more. I publish content like this all the time. I'm Jeff Robertson. I'll see you in the next one.